The origins of creativity. Earth, water, fire. Ever since humanity began this long awakening, drawing away from the primal animal state, clay has been the most used medium of expression on the open road towards civilization. As in a relay race, history has passed on the torch of creativity into the hands of mortals, who bit by bit build the edifice of evolution and change, using our minds and the materials nature places in our reach. The most direct, profound relationship between matter and humanity is alchemy. Alchemy will be the key word of this story. Millennia before Christ, our need for our space, special places, for things, for ritual, in trust, brought us to the potter's wheel, which opened the way to machinery and on to this modern world. For Miguel Ruiz Jimenez, the potter's wheel remains still a source of inspiration and study, a fount of multitudinous theories and technical reasonings for the realization of his macro sculptures, his architecture. A symphony of forces converge and blend in the turning of the wheel, as in a working model of the solar system. The rotation, the orbital motion, the centrifugal force they jointly create, and then controlled by man's hand, acting itself as an inverted orbital movement, the hand that takes the separating and arranging of clay, the plastic matter, to the very limits of the sphere, of the vessel, in constant struggle with the pressure between the fingers. The force of gravity on the raising of the piece imposes, simultaneously and through alchemy, the shaping of a natural free architecture, formed with matter in absolute liberty, ordered and disposed by the most primordial laws of nature and the cosmos. After a perfect drying, the evaporation of the physical water, the clay of our piece is ready to receive its first heating, or baking, here at a temperature of 1025 degrees centigrade, that will confer the hardness, the soundness, the sound of the purest terracotta. But to control the element fire, a suitable place had to be constructed, later denominated kiln. Like an open but virtually unexplored catacomb, the cave interior of the kiln, this mysterious bears witness to the secret ritual of the transformation of mud into a message of the most transcendental values, those of feelings and of the dreams that assault man. A primordial architecture with primitive roots that perhaps gave the solution of the arch to ancient cultures and proceeded through history, defining and perfecting the alchemy physics of kiln construction. As if we were talking about a living being. The kiln beats. Its natural working, no mechanical elements, all architectonic configuration. It receives cold air through its strategically located lower mouthpiece, and with measures proportional to the volume of the cauldron, the rhythmic movement raises the fire towards the baking chamber, till the point of maturation for each piece of clay or balsam is reached. Once the consequences of this previous stage are analyzed, we must design an enamel, which in our case will have to be borax alkaline, which will be welcomed into the heart of the texture, and our balsam can progress to golden reduction. The color blue in some of the works is achieved with a compound of cobalt oxide and a flux with similar features to the white base. After the second baking, our piece is ready to receive the intricate decoration of motifs, calligraphy, or the most stylized animalistic motifs, or the purest abstraction of vegetable motifs that characterize Nazari art. The graffito technique is also applied on these monumental works. At last, the work is ready and prepared to receive what may be its final baptism of fire, absolutely necessary to the reduction. The process of reduction. Reduction means provoking the opposite reaction to oxidation. This simple, but at the same time complicated process is the key, above all when undergone with alchemy, the final touch in a long process that confers the unequaled finish of our vessels of the Alhambra. It is necessary to construct a kiln to scale, a space to rehearse this unique dialogue between fire and man, through a relationship that permits him to master it within the bounds of the particular interior space called the upward draft kiln, especially designed for this singular process, for the tormented gestation and physical alchemy that takes place within. An appropriate cooling, natural, keeping the oxygen outside from invading the kiln interior again, and we can uncover a scene now calm and silent, but a recent witness to a ritual capable of converting inert matter into a receptacle of life, a transmission of feelings. In this way, a lost treasure long faded on the impoverished parchment of history, the vessels of the Alhambra, can shine once more thanks to the dedicated research and recovery work of Miguel Ruiz Jimenez, a sculptor-potter who has invested half his life to redeem from the torpor of the museums of the world the alchemic spirit that enfolds the contemplation of any of these vessels. Creativity as existence. This heterogeneous journey along alchemic, physical, chemical ways, through these indefinite spaces where the matrix of all the changes is hidden, where the forms beat rhythmically through their immutable essence. From all this springs the need to make new projections, using all that has been learned, so that, as in the translations of a language, ideas, common feelings can be universalized. There used to be, in one and the same person, sculptors and architects, painters and alchemists, potters and poets. Then the Industrial Revolution, insistently condemning work into a specialization conceived for mass production. Assembly line steelmaking took over the alchemy, the alchemic spirit of those dreamers of realities and architectures of unrepeatable beauty that still outline the silhouette of the more welcoming horizons. Now Miguel Ruiz Jimenez must confront for his creativity existence with a simultaneous multiplicity of professions, of jobs, because he knows it is the only way he will be able to achieve his objective. And he will have to use all he has learned to continue to face the struggle against the brain's own inertia, the most fertile of the battles, and against collapse into the irreversible coma of sterile certainty, where any transcendent perception transforms into confusion and panic. Once more into the laboratory with the alchemy physics that relates heat with matter, that contradicts logical theories of the dilatation produced by the speed of the electrons of the atom, that serenades the ceramic material and vitrifies it towards a matter suggestive of elemental mineralogies and human textures. The alchemy of the kiln as a magic power, awaiting man to order the molecules of the clay and then, beyond his reach, at enormous temperatures, making the final step towards the finished work. The Archmen. A family of giant sculptures dominated by a visceral, geological, impetuous and intense design. The bodies arise from a mineral substrate. They invade the strata of an evolution that in the end develops a man imprisoned by that amalgam of minerals. This macro sculpture will preside over an entourage, a sculptural throng around a hill, covering 27,000 square meters of ground. In the process of its production are involved creative sculpture, architecture, engineering, the forge, ceramics, and alchemy in the broadest sense of the word. Great modules of stoneware over a ton in weight will be cast, textured, calculated, and arranged so as to support its own weight of 80 tons. The wide-ranging research that this work requires, its shaping in stoneware ceramic materials, will surely pass on a new legacy to the world of technology and art. The extermination of the mind. The extermination of the mind is the title of a gallery of sad individuals, halfway between technology and genetics. Beings that clamor, perhaps, for a world that humanity could have been, while the metalled, bright gadgets of science invade their flesh or disintegrate their brains into a vacuum that seems to scream from their contorted grimaces. The destructured sculpture, an exploration from the obverse of forms, in which what first was wrapping is transformed into the final element and external protagonist of the work, as if we look at the heart of the sculpture through a carcass of nerves and tissues that form the inevitable shell of all creatures of the imagination and dreams. Sculptural architecture. The architecture of Miguel Ruiz Jimenez is inspired by the need to create a space to be isolated in, to be able to dream awake. While he was looking one day at one of his sculptures, after an intense dialogue, perhaps penetrating into its interior and starting to imagine a place that later became this architecture. But this is only the beginning of a project that has just commenced. Miguel Ruiz Jimenez. Think of the life of a mortal as an ephemeral journey. And every time you look back, you have just begun.